So next up we have the official launch of the nProve tool for beef. And could I just say, this will have been a huge amount of work for the BLG team, and I think we should recognise that there will have been a lot of long hours going into this. I was actually involved with the BLG team 7 or 8 years ago when I sat on the B+LNZ Genetics board and used to visit Dunedin from now and then. And the passion that these guys have for the tools that they're developing for us farmers is amazing. So I just want to put a shout to David Campbell and the rest of his team for getting this to the point now that we're launching it, because I know how much work, blood, sweat and tears, and in some cases I suspect getting this to a format which is going to be something that is really valuable to us. So let's welcome David Campbell and David Warburton to the stage. David Campbell is the Genetic Systems Manager for Beef and Lamb New Zealand, and Dave Warburton is a vet and he's on the Informing New Zealand Beef Industry Advisory Group member. So together they're going to talk us through the new nProve tool that's been developed. So I'll hand over, I think, to David Campbell to lead that away. Thanks, David.
Thanks, George. Just get myself plugged in. All right. Thank you for your time. So we'll get started with a bit of an opening statement in terms of the why we're here, which is really about that New Zealand Inc., accelerating New Zealand's genetic gains. And I think everyone in the room knows what goes into that. For all the breeders, checking animals are free of faults, fit for purpose, all the hard work going in to collect high quality performance, pedigree and genotype data, the institutions that have been formed around that, many of them here today, and the collaboration that comes from that. And all of that to produce objective hard numbers that do predict future performance of animals. But the question really, and the why in terms of what you're going to look at is, how often is that valuable information not used or not front and centre like it needs to be in the commercial farmer bull buying process. So and this is going to overlap a bit with what Dan talked to you about earlier, but if we go back a bit in time, this is one of our tools, and some of you may recognise it, but pretty standard stuff, right? A form that you rock up to, and this is your world. Like anyone, when you put any of your indexes or EBVs up, you know what they are, you know what the ranges are, and you can get useful information out of this pretty quick. And what we found is that commercial farmers, especially the more proactive ones, were starting to use this tool. So BLG at the time, Annie ran a bunch of workshops with commercial farmers to assist them in using that tool. And that went really well. But there was some really strong feedback that we kept on getting beaten over the head, to be blunt with, throughout, which is this is not designed for us as commercial farmers. I mean, which EBVs are which? What's a good value? What am I looking for here? How am I supposed to compare options? And, like in terms of it being user-friendly or a reasonable on-ramp, the feedback was it was pretty overwhelming. So not that simple or easy to use, but it was very useful. So in 2019, taking that feedback with the support of RMPP funding, we kicked off a series of workshops with commercial farmers. We found that small groups, definitely no more than 6, but we tried to sort of make it around 3 or 4, worked really well, where they were open and pretty relaxed, and we got really good insights. It was a real range of farmers that we had at those workshops, everything from those that were almost as obsessive as breeders are, right through to on the other end that didn't believe in any of this and thought it was a big chocolate wheel. So we got a lot of really good feedback from that. Look, the key thing that came out of that is, like I said before, just not approachable, not user-friendly, not intuitive, lots of jargon and acronyms. And if I can share something that's the closest thing that I know of to this that might help sort of set that scene, when I've killed time at airports and come across many breeders, there's a pretty common thing that people see me and bail me up about, which is, the laptop at home bailed yesterday, and they need to get a new one. And they'll typically pull out their phone and show me something that looks like this. A stack of laptops talking about RAM, SSD, core counts, memory bandwidth, Intel, AMD, and a bunch of other things. Well, how the hell are they supposed to work out what they want? I mean, what's better between these two laptops? And invariably for them, it ends up with a trip where they end up talking to someone that probably looks a little bit like this. And that can go in a number of ways as well, right? Like that guy can start doing the exact same thing and you just want to get out of there as quick as you can. But if he's doing his job right, he's going to ask you about the purpose. What do you want the laptop for? Is it a bit of Netflix and email? Is it something you're going to do the farm accounts on? You want a bigger screen? Or is it going to be, traveling and smaller and lighter? But they don't hit you with a table of numbers like what Jason was showing us. So with that feedback in mind, we carried those workshops on with the farmers. And we literally started with a blank piece of paper. That's my suboptimal drawing skills you can see on screen. And we just started unpacking what they liked and didn't like about the tools. And that included tools that had nothing to do with genetics. I mean, that tool I showed you before showed up. Lots of beef stuff showed up, and both the likes and dislikes. And, just other tools that farmers were using online and felt intuitive. So from there, we proceeded to do mock-ups. So that's where we work with our technology provider, Map of Ag, and we get, it's really make-believe software created. So none of this stuff is actually real, but you can click on things and see how it's going to behave. And we can modify those quite quickly and cheaply. It's quite an agile way of refining a design. And we would test that with the farmers, but making sure we brought new farmers in. Like we needed somebody that wasn't part of those design discussions to come in and be able to say, yep, I understand what's going on and I can get to what I need. So from there, we kicked off the design, which really was around that purpose, like we were talking about earlier, picking that up, making sure it was intuitive. Farmers were looking for something that was visual. Mobile was important. It needed to work out in the yards. Percentile based. They didn't want to spend time trying to work out what sort of values they should be looking for. But the number one thing, and I mean by a gold mile, was when will we get this for beef? And I want to say every single workshop had it. And we picked that up early on, and so kept the multi-species. We kept working beef through as part of that process in terms of the tool development. So from there, we were on to the actual software build, the development, getting that tested to make sure that everything that was being displayed was correct. More commercial farmer feedback. We went to the last one. We went to an open day and a field day, and Olivia from our extension team did a great job of rounding up farmers that made the mistake of making eye contact to, get the feedback in terms of that tool and knock off any remaining rough edges before we went ahead and launched. So in 2020 it was launched. My figures are a little bit different to Dan's, but you'll see the same vibe there, and I won't spend time on that. Exactly like Dan said, really pleased in terms of the adoption that we saw and still do. And it feeds in really well, and you'll see it when we look at some content that Sarah's created for us, where there's you can come in, move a few things, get heading in the right direction quite quickly, but then we've made it really easy to scratch below the surface and start diving down and looking at, like Jason was showing with the sub-indexes or maybe some key EBVs and things like that. In terms of some other metrics, so the mobile use, as we suspected, is pretty high. You'll see there it's almost half. So that's really important that we keep it optimised to work well on a small screen. There's a lot of intelligence the software team put in there. It knows when it's on a mobile versus when you're opening it on your desktop, and it adjusts the way that it appears accordingly. And another interesting graph that's going to touch a little bit on what I'll talk to you about at the end around the extension work that Sarah and Becky lead, is this shows where the traffic to nProve comes from. And you can see that lovely big 44% of direct traffic. So that's really directly from the awareness and extension and marketing that's been going on, so that commercial farmers know they can just type in nProve.nz and they're on their way there. And I should also say a lot of that is through breeders, which is really, really important. So that was good. We got our runs on the board, funded for sheep, but then the obvious question that kept on coming up at the office was, well, what are we going to do about beef and when? We knew there was a strong demand there from commercial farmers, which takes us to the INZB program. So when that program was being designed, this was included as one of the core components in that program. We reached out for interest, and through PBB, who have supported this throughout, Angus, NZ Hereford and Shorthorn all put their hand up, who were on the ABRI platform, as did Simmental, which was quite cool too, because they were on a different evaluation platform, and so that sort of brought that multi-evaluation component into the project right from the outset. Other collaborators that have come together on this, like you've heard already, Abacus Bio with the depth that they've got, and then just the same in terms of that technical depth as the Map of Ag team that we've got on the project throughout, right from the design, building and testing of the software. And then other database providers as well, like Helical, that you can see there on screen. And just while we're on the collaborators, one person to call out is definitely the PBB team. So Jamie's team, she couldn't be here unfortunately today, but definitely a big special thanks to Lisa, where she is over there. Like just a huge amount of work on this. Like it became quite time compressed in the end there, and just absolutely critical in terms of us getting this across the line. Definitely a shout out to the beef and lamb crew, Victor and Sarah, and everybody else back at the office that supported this, and the rest of them that are here today, many of which you'll see. And obviously Dave's been a big part of it. I don't need a picture, there's quite a good 3D rendering of him there, quite lifelike. So thanks heaps, Dave. So I'll hand over to you, Dave, for the collaboration piece.
So back in winter 2023, a small delegation of breed representatives and a BLG team went over to North America to canvass what is going on in America, looking at the opportunities over there and what we could leverage and bring back to the New Zealand industry. But one of the most important things that came out of that trip was that the breed societies could really connect and collaborate, which they hadn't done in the past. You could imagine 4 herd bulls in a 100-acre paddock coming into the yards for the first time in a while, and there's a bit of shenanigans and a bit of dust up. Well, that got ironed out, and we managed to move forward. And it's been a bit of a breakthrough, really, because there's also been momentum maintained out of that, and so because we've done that, we were able to have some pretty blunt and honest conversations, which was very good in moving things forward. So the challenge for breed societies is that they are driven by the membership views, but their members are reliant on commercial farmers. So those two groups don't always see things the same way. So we needed to identify and respect those two different groups, but we're also all on the same page that we're trying to work together for the New Zealand beef industry. So we channeled those alignments together, strong alignment around the ultimate customer, which is the commercial farmer, and the need to increase the emphasis to use EBVs in the bull buying decision-making process was a common goal for the betterment of the whole industry. So we worked some long meetings and some strong conversations. We worked through plenty of mock-ups with David's team, looking at how it would work, utilising the information systems the evaluations that we've already got, and merging them into one site, and then taking feedback and refinement and getting things across the line. As you can imagine, with so many groups involved, can be a bit of a challenge, but we got there.
Thanks, Dave. And it was pretty cool, like to have been part of that and see that whole New Zealand Inc. Develop was pretty cool. And the other neat thing that came out of that is, we Beef and Lamb came into that with a lot of insights that in terms of hitting the ground running. But like Dave said, a lot came out of those discussions as well. And a big part of this tool maintaining its momentum is about keeping it consistent between the species. And so it's quite cool too to be able to take a lot of what came out of that and bring it back onto the sheep side as well. So with that, I would like to show you just a quick video that Sarah and Becky have pulled together, and then we'll come back and look at a few things in a bit more detail.
Beef and Lamb New Zealand Genetics works with a diverse range of breeders to enable commercial farmers to profit from New Zealand's world-class genetic gains. nProve is an online tool designed with farmers for farmers to help you discover genetics fit for your purpose, giving you the power to make informed decisions for your farm. nProve is a multi-species tool, updated every month, that allows farmers to search for sire options on one platform. Looking for bulls? Use nProve Beef. It helps you to quickly find stud breeders and bulls that best fit your farm system and breeding goals. What's the purpose of the sire that you're looking to buy? nProve can help you find bulls to produce stock for finishing, to breed replacement heifers, or to produce beef calves in a dairy system. The information shown for each breed is generated by that breed society's own genetic evaluation, so breeds cannot be compared with one another. By default, nProve automatically shows you all the animals for an age range. You can also filter your results to only show animals available for sale. Using a selection of buttons and slider scales, you can customise your options to breeders and bulls that best fit your system. Indexes are a great way of combining traits into a core focus. This New Zealand dollar maternal index combines breeding, calving, finishing, and carcass trait groupings. If any of these trait groupings are particularly important to you, you can also move them separately. For this maternal production system we've selected, you can also see the maternal total index and its sub-indexes are turned on automatically, shown by the green graph at the bottom. You can also select individual traits, such as these key EBVs, grouped for the maternal production system we've selected. There are also other traits and genetic conditions that you can select. To help you along the way, there is a handy guide on the slider scale to tell you what you're trying to achieve by moving the slider in each direction. We suggest focusing on only 3 priorities. Every time you move a slider, the number of animals fitting your criteria reduces. nProve quickly helps identify your options nationwide, ranked by likeness to your selection criteria. Take note of the number of relevant animals. This represents the number of animals from each breeder meeting your criteria. The higher the ratio of animals meeting your criteria in comparison to the year group shown means a closer alignment with your objectives and the breeder's objectives. If you would like to look at other options, nProve allows you to easily swap between breeds. You can also view your options closer to home and flag breeders of interest to compare. Once you've found a breeder that meets your criteria, you can also look at their animals more closely. nProve is about empowering you to make informed bull purchases to harness the power of genetics on your farm.
We'll look a wee bit later on about some of the other content that's being pulled together. But for now, if I can get everything to work nicely here, I'll try and pop a screen up of nProve. So I'm going to show you we'll just dig into a couple of those things a little bit now. There's going to be a separate session that Sarah and Anna are going to be running this afternoon at 1 o'clock. They'll take you through in a lot more detail, so we're just going to scratch the surface a little bit. So like you heard from Jason's talk, the laptop example, first up, what's that purpose? The fact that even before I select anything, I'll just zoom that out a wee bit, we'll select a breed. Let's go for Shorthorn. We can just jump straight in, and it's going to order these results based on the main index for dairy over beef in this example. And like you can see, really visual, very straightforward. That main index, and you can see the three sub-indexes in that, showing that composition that Jason was talking about. Probably, something else, I know it's obvious, but just to point it out, the ability at a glance to see what's happening at a herd or a breeder level in terms of that driveway question as well is incredibly powerful. Just before we go any further, I will point out that for Hereford, if I just switch across to them, you will notice that those indexes that we've got for the others aren't there yet. So Hereford, they've got the indexes that they'd just updated. So those are still in there at the moment. This project did become quite compressed from a time point of view. There's a lot of time pressure. So they're on board with the common language that Jason's taken us through, and we're working that through. But just for now, just be aware that you'll see their indexes are slightly different. Another scenario that we thought we would show you is, when you're on farm and you're wanting to have a conversation with a commercial farmer, or you might be on the phone with a client. So you can, skip the step that they would normally do and say what they're looking for. You can actually just go straight down to where the breeders are, search for yourself in the top left-hand corner, and I'll just going to pick one with a few animals. So I'm going to flag this breeder here. Let's say that's me. And I'll flick the flag on to only show my herd. You'll notice down here, the animal results are now just for me, for one breeder. So when I go here, I'm just looking at my own animals, or my client's just looking at my animals. And so now when I go in and choose traits, so let's say we want to be in the top half for our overall index. Just zoom that out a wee bit so we can see the rest. And let's say, what would be a good example, Dave, for a client?
So if we're going over a Kiwi cross cow, we put a bit more emphasis on the finishing for a bit more growth.
Yeah. Could we, and maybe throw our EBV in?
Yep, so we add in some muscling with some carcass weight and a bit of 400-day growth.
Okay. So what's happening now, rather than this great big drag race where everyone's chasing that overall index, what nProve has done, and it'll do this within your own herd when you've got a client, like in this example, but for a commercial farmer when they're looking more broadly, it'll do the same thing, is it's actually looked at all of those sliders that I've moved, and then it's ordering them based across or focused on all of those traits that I said that mattered to me. I can still see the breakdown, and you'll notice I've got the indexes and sub-indexes and those two EBVs that I've shown that I'm interested in, it's also tucked those in there as well. So hopefully you can sort of see that in terms of that slogan that's in there about fit for your purpose, that is really what it's about, is for breeders that have got that niche to make sure that the commercial farmers that are looking for it can find you.
So I see this really exciting, where you could have an open day on your farm as a stud breeder. You've got clients walking around, and then you can pull out the phone and have the conversation with the client. What animals suit him, you can move the sliders and then point them, well, this is that bull and this is this bull and these are the bulls in this pen that meet your criteria. And all you do is you don't have to have the piece of paper, you just have the phone. And it just makes things so much easier.
Exactly. One last thing to show you is, if I'll just click start over. When you come in, we'll pick, we'll go maternal this time. I'll go back to shorthorn. You can use a criteria, which is all about using the sliders to say what you're interested in. But for commercial farmers, often they'll go to this animal IDs, and this is just an area where they can go in, enter some IDs in, or animal names, or you can enter a partial animal name and it'll do a search up to enable them to find them. So that's really about being able to look at the genetic profile or composition of the sire team or of their bulls before talking to their breeder. Was there anything else to cover on that one from your side, Dave?
No.
So I'll flip back to the presentation. So in terms of looking forward, the question came up before about AI and a data lake, which is Jason's expertise. That is on our radar. It definitely is. There's a lot happening in the AI space, and we've got a project I'll get to in a minute that may intersect with that a little bit as well. The question came up before that Dan was careful about, but we can confirm that Angus Pro, Jason's working through the details of that with them, and we're expecting them to be the next breed society that will be on the platform. Dave, do you want to talk about accuracy and data quality?
Yeah, so one of the things as a breeder we want to reward is high data integrity or high accuracy data. So we want to reward people that collect a lot of data, a good recorder, a good measurer, and we're working through a system where we can incentivise those to keep doing that, doing a good job, and present the information in an attractive way to encourage viewing of high quality data when you're comparing an animal that's the same EBVs, but one's of a higher data accuracy. We don't know the exact mechanism of what that looks like just yet, but we're working through a few options, and it's not going to be an overnight issue solve.
Thanks, Dave. And then again in the forward looking, and Dan touched on this earlier this morning as well, but pretty cool project that we've got going on in the Cool Sheep project, and it is funded only for sheep. But like you heard earlier, we'll still go about that with a multi-species mindset in terms of what we do. The plan basically is to enable commercial farmers to track exactly who's in their sire team, and it's likely going to be nProve to actually be able to provide them that summary, just the same way that you saw before where the herds can be summarised, same thing, but summarising it at the sire team level. And then we're looking at collecting some feedback from the farmer in terms of how those sires are being used, flowing that into a gene flow model where we can actually show the farmer, we can make that a lot more real, like before those mating decisions are made, actually see what the impact of that's going to look like in terms of that genetic profile on farm. And then off the back of that, we can then look at creating scorecards.
So I see this is really exciting for me, and I see lots of opportunities here with a scorecard of your sire team. It helps to set the scene when you're working with someone where their sire team profile is at and what they're weak in, what are the traits they're weak in, and then you can point them to the bulls that are going to lift the traits that you can identify with your client that they're weaker in. We've got progeny of this sire team, and they may have some attractive traits that are worth marketing and selling as a marketing appeal, that they might be, really well suited to a finishing feedlot. They might be really well suited to the 400 kilo carcass on the hook. There's different systems with different animals, and the sire team is the benchmark. Okay, and if we keep archiving that, then it gives us a really good profile of how we're tracking and making some progress. And then if we add in things like methane into those traits of interest, then it gets really attractive in terms of, we're making that progress, we're measuring it, and we can document it as well. So it's pretty exciting.
At the moment, you've got the sire team effectively at a breeder level. Are you talking about being able to actually bring that down to a commercial farmer level?
Can we get a microphone?
There's no details lined up. So the question was, are we going to? You can do the sire team manually yourself at the moment, and you want.
Is it on? Yeah. Well, at the moment, what you're suggesting is you're going to have a sire team profile at breeder level. But my question is, have you considered actually making that information able to be represented at a commercial level, where a commercial farmer buys half a dozen bulls from half a dozen different studs, and then the finishers that are looking at their calf at the local calf sale can go in and see what bulls they bought and what year they bought them at?
That's exactly what we're talking about. So we're just talking commercial. Yeah. The
That's
breeders is an add-on, but this is a commercially focused tool, and that's the vision. Would it be useful for marketing, archiving, documenting, and checking in your progress? So there's lots of benefits if we can pull through with it.
So that commercial farmer sire team tool, it is only funded for sheep at the moment, but we'll go about it with an open mind in terms of species, like we did, with what you've just seen. In fact, Sarah's going to be presenting that to some commercial farmers at a field day next week. So we're starting to collect feedback on that already. But the point really to share that in the room, though, is, we're always working on the next project and what's, how we can sort of build that momentum, and this is one that's definitely on our radar. Most importantly, in terms of where we're going, it really comes down to teaming up with our Beef and Lamb New Zealand's capabilities with yours to reach commercial farmers. I'm not going to do justice of the work that's been going on behind the scenes by Sarah and Becky on this, and I won't go into the phases and details, but there's a bunch of stuff happening around video content, an early version you just saw before, advertisements, ad campaigns, targeted social media, those better beef breeding workshops, 17 of those coming up before 2-year-old bull sales, with the support of breeders and beef and lamb extension staff. And then there'll be more workshops before the yearling sales and further development of guides and FAQs. And I guess one thing, you probably joined the dots already, but from a beef and lamb point of view for nProve, we're beef and lamb, and the beef is in there now in the tool. So there's obviously really good critical mass for us as well. If you're interested in running one of those workshops, please make yourself known to Dave or Sarah as well. So that's us. The tool's live. Feel free to have a play on your phone.
So this is just to reiterate the extension. This is day one of the marketing extension campaign. So you're the first to see it. So we're trying to get the message out far and wide and intensely done before the 2-year-old bull sales. Obviously that's around the corner. So please feel free to check in with your clients and your mates and get them engaged in using it, because it's so friendly. Obviously one of the biggest attractions is the sliders. So the commercial farmers don't need to know the EBV number. Okay, they don't have to get paralysed by the number. They can use the sliders up and down. And that's the huge attraction for a search for a commercial farmer. And the other attraction is that they're doing this with sheep, so they're repeating the experience. They're going to get good at using it. And so, you know, if you're familiar with lots of software that you have to log into, and how many times can you not remember the login just because you haven't been there before in the last 6 months, this is a similar thing. Repeat use of an easy tool, and we'll get better adoption.
So yeah, thanks for your time. The tool will be there. I do have to give you a heads up though, tomorrow afternoon at 3 o'clock. We've got some annual maintenance that we can't defer. So the tool will actually go offline for 3 hours tomorrow afternoon. But other than that, it'll be there. Other than that, like it's up 99.9% of the time. So apologies on that. But yeah, pull your phone out, have a play at lunchtime, and keen to hear your feedback. Thanks, everyone.
Can we unplug that? Sorry, mate. Yeah. So we've got quite a few questions rolling through here, which is great. And I'd say Jason and Dan, you might want to be ready for some of these questions that are popping up here. So, first up, how is the tool going to deal with inherent bias created by genomics that assume the newest generation is better than the older, more proven genetics? Is that Jason? Yes.
To be frank, if we're doing our job right, the next generation is better than the previous generation. Otherwise, we shouldn't even be in the room, right? And the tool is going to present EBVs as they are. So what happens behind those EBVs is a separate issue. It's not going to change any of that. But I don't believe that there is inherent bias in genomics towards the new generation. That's not true. Genomics is doing its best to produce the best accurate predictions that we can. And in genomics, you know, we don't produce the breed plan EBVs, but I'll tell you what we do in sheep, and I know breed plan will do exactly the same thing. We in our sheep, we do an analysis using, say, up to the last couple, and leave out the last couple of years of data, and then we add the genomics in, and we look at how well that data predicts the next generation. And I can tell you, genomics improves that as a prediction. End of story. So, yeah,
Thanks, Jason. You just hold that microphone, I think. Next question there, which was partially answered. How long before all other New Zealand beef breeds will be included? Well, we saw that Angus Pro are about to be included, but probably Jason again.
David and I are back and forth on it. People have to put up their hand to ask for it, so we need the demand. But when that comes, we will put them on. It will be a matter of how quickly we can do that with our IT resource and the resources that we've got. But yeah, we would like to have every bull with accurate performance data in New Zealand available on that tool. So.
How is nProve aware of what animals are for sale? Are catalogues downloaded?
So excellent. Is this on? 1, 2, 3. Yeah. So basically, we've got the web address for where the animals that are for sale, and we'll check those every week. And so we'll look at which animals are for sale, update them as flagged as such in nProve, so you can go narrow it down to the animals that are for sale. When that catalogue drops off, we'll remove that flag from the animal. So that's the current way that we're planning on managing that.
Thank you. How will nProve encourage buyers to select for only the traits they have identified that needs improvement rather than select for the highest of all indexes? Dave.
Yeah, if you have a play at lunchtime, you'll see that there are very few bulls in the top 1% for every trait. They're mythical creatures, and so when you're selecting for more traits, then you'll see that there's not necessarily a race to the top, and there's no encouragement to do that. That's obviously animals have to be fit for purpose, There's some other features that Sarah and Anna will show in the next workshop where you'll see that you can actually bring the slide, make a double slider, so instead of pushing the slider up, there's a slider at the top as well, and you can bring that down to a middle value. So there are some options, but it's very hard to get a top 1%. They're pretty dreamy.
So I just add that, Dave, you actually don't need to slide the major index slider at all, right? You could leave that set as will produce anything, and then you could go to one EBV or two EBVs. If you want two EBVs to focus on, you could just slide those tools, and so you will only be selecting the top half or top 25% or wherever you slide it to for those traits, whatever ones you choose. So you can do that.
One here, I'm not sure if it's totally to do with nProve, but how can we get processors to adopt a grading system like MSA grading system and allowing a large real data source to feed back to EBVs instead the trial projects?
I'm looking at whether Dan wants to take that one or not. People are sick of hearing my voice. The different voice would be good.
Yeah, for sure. So this is the piece that I'd love to drag out of the dairy beef project that we talked about earlier. Not so much for MSA, that's really about that data pipeline coming back. One of the challenges we have, as noted, is that the meat processors use different grading standards. From a genetics point of view, and this is a Jason answer, not all data is useful data. And so we could get a screed of data come through us with a whole lot of, I don't know, marble scores, but unless it's linked to a pedigree, it's no use to us from a genetics point of view. So there's all of those things to work through. It's definitely out of scope of this project to get all of the meat companies using a standardised grading scheme, but certainly something you guys own these meat companies, you supply these meat companies. If it's important to you, keep having the conversation with them. I know it's something that Alan is keen that we keep thinking about. He mentioned earlier around that what the consumer wants, that whole supply chain, and making sure that we're producing great tasting food, like Simon said, which is what people actually will pay for, and so keen for us to be involved in that, but not a part of this project.
Are all breeders based on genomic testing, or are there some breeders that are purely heritage based? How is this balanced on the same scale?
So not all breeders are using genomics. Those who choose to use genomics are. How is it balanced on the same scale? Well, that's all taken into account in a breed plan analysis. And I know we've got Christian here from Breed Plan. I don't want to throw you under the bus, Christian, but if you do want to make any comment about it, you're welcome. But fundamentally, the answer is that it's part of the technology, right? It's how it works. It's not an either or either. So everyone that's using genomics has a weighting in there, but so does pedigree information. No, we don't run the beef evaluation, the breed plan evaluation. So that's why David put up on the screen there ABRI. So ABRI have been very cooperative with this, and they are sending us and the breed societies obviously have to give permission and are on board, but they send us the data and we're just displaying the data.
And this next question, maybe for someone out in the audience, which will Angus Breed Plan Index still be displayed on Internet Solutions? Which index will they display in sale categories?
Jane can take that one.
So on Internet Solutions, it will still be the breed plan indexes for the moment. If you attended the workshop yesterday, then we've obviously got some changes going, but I do love the new indexes and it makes it very simple, the new Abacus BLG indexes. So we don't want to confuse farmers, and we want to minimise the number of indexes that are out there, so there might be something going to give.
When Angus Pro is included with them having a body condition score EBV, would the index still use rib fat, or could they be a pilot for a better index for body condition?
Very, very good question. That would have to be a discussion, because it comes down to whether we want to make the index comparable with Angus New Zealand, and how we could do that. So we will have to put our thinking hats on. But yes, as at least on a research pilot level, without necessarily committing to put it up there on nProve, then that would be a way of trialling it out to see what it would look like. But, you know, even better might be if we all have a body condition score EBV. I keep on saying it, I know.
David, one for you. How regularly are the EBVs on nProve updated? And, i.e., do you run update monthly in line with breed genetic evaluation runs?
Yes, monthly, yep.
Simple. How important, or is it an issue if the breed database has so many bulls that haven't been fated? Is it better for a breeder to retain bulls on database?
Seems like a breed society question, Dave, to me.
Way over my pay grade.
Sorry, what was that? Yeah, we fate bulls off, and there's a code to do that. You have to have your full genomic information provided, all your genotyping and that done on every sire, so they're still stored. So, yeah, there's a question out there.
Robert's obviously got a Nokia block, so he's just going to ask his question.
Well, no, it was just because it was on this particular topic. So, like, in Internet Solutions, you can choose to look at all the bulls or just the active bulls. So, on this, when it says, because I've been on it and I've had a play, and it says all animals or sale animals, will there be an active animals option?
Yeah, great point, Robert. So by default, it's active only, and then, like you just said, there's the additional layer to chop that down to just for sale. But obviously, even if they're not active, the inactive ones will still be visible through the pedigree trees, which you'll see this afternoon. But at the moment, no, that you can only search active animals. But if there's any other ideas or suggestions like that, let us know. We're keen to pick any of those up today.
I actually put the question in because there's no real incentive for breeders to fate bulls. So there are a lot of bulls that are sitting in the database that aren't actually still currently alive. So just asking for active doesn't actually give you a really good representation of what is out there. And would it be better if you were if they're wanting to get a selection or know which is a better breeder, then there is no incentive if you ended up wanting them to see a lot of your bulls come up on that selection. So is it going to be necessary to fate them or not?
So this probably is it is as much a breed society question as an us question, right? Because we can only deal with the data fields that we get given. But yeah, I mean, what you say makes sense as well.
But we have to remember that this is primarily a bull buying tool for upcoming sale animals. That's the main function of it for commercial farmers to search for sale animals. So there's going to be archiving capacity in the future to keep those bulls alive, but the likelihood that there's going to be a lot of searching into older bulls for this tool is less common.
Just one off the thing here. Are photos or videos able to be uploaded against individual animals, David?
No, not at the moment, but again, if that's a common request that comes from the day, we'd be glad to hear from others that want that feature as well.
So Gary just had a good comment about that previous issue. He was handing me back the microphone. He was a little bit shy to talk, but I'm going to make it.
Yeah, just to solve the problem of the unfated bulls. They will always be older bulls, and when your default is, in this case, the 23-year born, then everyone in there will be generally still alive.
Cool. Last couple of questions before we start to wrap up. All the variables are changing all the time. Will the 3 index be reviewed regularly, even if it is to leave them unchanged for the moment? I'm assuming yes, but...
Yep, we haven't even really determined our policy around that, and we can consult around that. But as a general principle, yes, indexes should be reviewed from time to time. You don't want them changing every month because that just creates confusion as well. And the sort of different policies out there, some people review them annually and just use a 5-year rolling average for prices and that sort of thing. So every year, 5 years ago, it drops off and we add a new year in there. So the index has just changed incrementally a little bit. Other people, and this is sort of what we do in sheep, is just do a review every 5 years. But yeah, so you either want small incremental ones that are not very big and annually, or maybe a significant review every 5 years. There's pros and cons to how we do that, but yeah.
And no doubt you as the breed societies will be consulted on this going forward. What work has been done to make it a multi-breed analysis?
So we don't particularly want to become the provider of breed EBVs for New Zealand, because for a couple of reasons. One, because it takes an enormous amount of resource. Secondly, because your analyses right now generally compare, they're done with other databases. So for a lot of breeds, it's Trans-Tasman. And for some breeds, it's with America. So I guess we would like to work with the breed societies and look through options for how we could get a solution. And there will not be a perfect solution, right? The perfect solution would be every breed society, all in the same analysis, from Australia, from New Zealand, from the US, from Canada, our major trading partners. Now, I'm not going to get in there and solve world peace in the US, right? That's just out of scope. But we need to find the best compromise. There's probably there's a couple of options out there, I guess I'd say. So there's a big international multi-breed, which is called IGS, International Genetic Solutions, that's run out of the US, and Simmental are part of that analysis already. So that's an option. But our equivalent over in Australia, Meat and Livestock Australia, have had a long-held goal of having multi-breed as well. So, and we talk to them. So we're certainly not closing the door to that. We'll leave it there.
Cool, thanks. And lastly, pretty simple one, does nProve show an accuracy percentage for each EBV?
Not at the moment, and that relates to the point that Dave brought up before around what's the best way in working with the societies to work out that in terms of data quality. And obviously accuracies is an important part of that, and if I was betting bear on it, I'd say it's probably going to be involved, but there's also recording levels and genotyping and things like that. So that's that big topic that Dave referred to earlier in terms of how we unpack that and work out how to surface it and improve best.
Cool, excellent. Well, thanks very much to David and the rest of his team, and also Dave and the rest of the advisory group for all the work they've done in launching this product. Great work.